Oh, I know. But I think of you as kind of pioneer, because in the wake of that, all sorts of storefront theaters and loft theaters and stuff popped up in the late 80s and the early 90s, and long about, well, what was the year of the first New York International Fringe Festival?
97.
We did the first one in 97.
Yeah. By that time, the whole Lower East Side scene was blossoming with many, many theaters.
Yeah, it was. It was where all of us were producing at the time. We came down and joined Ellie, and you know, John thought of the idea probably in '95.
It was late '95, yeah.
When we were doing Americana Absurdum by Brian Parks.
In one of those storefront theaters in Telecanada on Ludlow. Yeah, and that was it Surf Reality, Collective Unconscious, House of Candles, and those were all just I guess like 2 blocks east of where Ellie had started. And went that way.
It's like a mini anti-Broadway.
It was, yeah. It was certainly a little theater row.
It was,
but it was a storefront theater row, which was interesting.
Talk a little bit about the origins of the Fringe Festival. Like where did the idea come from, and how?
Well, basically, we couldn't afford to get to Edinburgh. I mean, we were doing Americana Absurdum, and everyone's reaction that we talked to, we got a little bit of critical attention, and by that I mean a listing, you know, which at the time was,
the first year.
Oh my gosh, we got listed, you know.
And how many shows that first year?
The first festival was 175. It was supposed to be 100. Yeah, the original idea was we were going to do 100 shows in 10 venues. And then at some critical juncture, we said, that's not big enough, it's not going to get any attention.
Was it mostly New York folks, or people from around the country?
Well, we called it the International Fringe Festival, so we were thrilled when a Canadian troupe came in the order. We were like, yes, that's international, that counts. Actually, that's not true. There was an Irish group that first year.
And that London group.
And that London group.
I feel like I have Simon and Garfunkel back.
We actually feel like Simon and Garfunkel.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. But yeah, at some point we realized really the idea was not just another festival, but the impulse was a sort of a overload, intentional overload, so that it would be, and not so much for Uptown, but for us, for all these, all the shows, all the companies, that was a time, you know, you both remember the mid-'90s, early '90s, where there was a feeling of resurgence. There was a feeling of lots of new work, lots of entrepreneurial spirits like Ellie, you know, who were saying, yeah, this is my little theater company. And I don't know if it's true for every, but it seems like most of the people who were starting venues and opening spaces were artists themselves. There was that, you know, it's what Kirk was talking about earlier, there was that independent theater spirit, that independent spirit, entrepreneurial.
And self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient. You know, there wasn't a division, and I guess there still isn't as much, but there wasn't a division like there is in other places between producer and artist.
Everyone's just a theater maker.
Like Kirk said, if you wanted to, you know, get your work produced in the way that it was intended, as the creator, you had to produce it yourself.
Make it happen.
You do it yourself, and there's a hardship to that, but there's a freedom to that, and there's eventually there becomes an aesthetic, which I also, excuse me, just going to clear my throat on your show, but it becomes an aesthetic. It becomes an aesthetic of I'm not auditioning for another show. This is the experience. This is the entire experience.
That's a good way to say it.
We should